Hey guys, what the heck is going on? Sam Cox here with Team Bropire and coming at you guys today with a discussion over a card that we all know and love, and that is Giant Trunade. This is one of those cards that if you have played at all in the competitive Go format circuit at all here in the last probably 2, 3, 4 months or so, you've probably seen a ton of this card, and this is one of those cards that people love and people hate. Usually the people that are playing it are the people that love it. Um, it's just I've seen a ton of play for a lot of different reasons. One being because of the decks that are playing it. We're going to go over why those decks are starting to become popular. We're going to go over some of the reasons why people are citing this card, and we're also going to go over some of the combos that this card has with other cards that are in a lot of the main decks, just in general in GOAT format. Maybe fill you in on some info that you didn't know. Also, I'm going to kind of update you guys on this rotating format known as GOAT format that has been going on for a very long time now, and my opinions on where we're at the moment. So I do play GOAT format. On a weekly basis, if sometimes not on a daily basis, when I'm not on the road as much. For those of you that don't know, I'm a traveling musician, and in the morning time, some of my favorite thing to do is just get some coffee, wake up early, go to my office, and play a little DB while I'm waking up, and I take a lot of mental notes every day about what cards I'm seeing a ton of, and I've been seeing a ton of this card, so I started to take some notes on my phone, and I was just like, man, I'm seeing more and more of this card and some interactions that people are doing and that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, man, is Giant Trunade like one of the best cards in this format at the time? I do think so. As of right now, I do think that this is one of the most powerful cards in the format. And again, I'm going to go over all the reasons why you're seeing a ton of this card and why it's great, etc. So we've talked about it on the channel about how this format is a rotating format, and it all kind of started. Whenever I started to notice, was I'd say a couple years ago, whenever Gravekeeper Spy was becoming a very, very popular card, because at that time, Flip Chaos was the most popular deck in GOAT format. Now, this was quickly counteracted by things like Level 2 Swordsman, their start of the chain reaction. Now, I'm sure that if you go back and you look up the videos in chronological order, you can probably go back on this channel and see the chain reaction that has happened, and all of the rotating popular decks and cards that have kind of come in and out of the format over the last, I'd say, couple of years or so. But yeah, it started with Gravekeeper Spy because Flip Chaos is very popular. Decks that play things like Spy, Decoichi, Night Assailant, Thunder Dragon, Chaos Monsters, that kind of stuff. And because that didn't do anything, or I'm sorry, Blade Knight couldn't do anything hardly to Gravekeeper Spy. So people started playing things like Level 2 Swordsman, which made it to where people had to play more warriors in their deck, which kind of led to obviously more Rhoda, which led to not as much room for Chaos. So they kind of, reduced the amount of Chaos Sork and, Chaos Monsters in general. Obviously, you can only play one BLS, but it kind of made it to where it was a warrior deck that played Chaos Monsters. And for a while there, I'd say for almost a year, this was the best deck in the format. And things like Flip Chaos kind of took a back seat to it, because it was just getting wrecked by decks like this, especially things that played Solemn Judgment and that kind of stuff. Well, as I said earlier in the video, decks become popular. People get tired of playing it and or playing against it, so they decide to just go ahead and start playing other decks that counteract it. And there, even goes farther with the whole, rotation of decks in and out that become popular in this format. I do think that Flip Chaos will come back around, and then we'll probably go through this again. But as of right now, there are two decks that I want to talk about, and they both play Giant Trunade. Now that is Panda Burn, which you guys know as decks that play things like Ojama Trio with Panda, and this guy gets big as fuck, and he can just run over the tokens. They take damage, and this guy does piercing. He gets up to 2,000-3,000, that kind of stuff. There's also decks that are known as Crane Gate, Reasoning Gate, Mill decks, whatever. They play things like Crane, Democ, Reasoning, Monster Gate, Genzo. Sometimes Parshath, sometimes Visor Shock. It really just kind of depends on the decks that they're playing. And all these things play Giant Trunade for a lot of different reasons, because you want to get your opponent's back row out of the way. A lot of the times, Giant Trunade will go 1-for-1 with a Solemn Judgment, and your opponent will lose 4,000 life points, and it will make it easier for these decks to kill them. That's another reason why they play Giant Trunades, to try to just bait out the Solemn Judgment, because Solemn Judgment had become such a popular deck with these aggro decks over here. Now, at the moment, I would say that Flip Chaos is maybe 10% of the meta as of right now, because also with the fact that Warrior Chaos, it shits on that deck. Flip Chaos is a lot of T-set, which you're just setting a monster face down in defense and setting a back row. Well, these decks get around that very, very great too. So at this moment, Flip Chaos is just not seeing a ton of play. So where we're at right now, at the end of 2021 in Go format, we're seeing a bunch of decks that move very, very quickly. They win very quickly, and there are a bunch of decks that are very aggro. So there's just a lot of fist fighting going on right now in GOAT format and at a very aggressive level with all the different decks that are popular. So now those decks are playing Giant Trunade. That is why you've seen a ton of Giant Trunade in the meta here recently. Another reason is because there's been a small resurgence of things like GOAT Control, and this is a very great card against things like GOAT Control. Also, for the main reason is because that Thousand Eyes Restrict steals your monster, right? So let's say Thousand Eyes Restrict steals Chaos Sword, okay? Tags with it, you get 2300 or whatever. Giant Trunade, when it's activated, will return the monster that Thousand Eyes Restrict soaked up, will return that back to your hand, okay? So therefore, you can use it again. And then what a lot of people have been doing here recently, while they're gaining up resources in their hands for getting ready to OTK, they will just let that Thousand Eyes Restrict sit there. And then the person that controls the Thousand Eyes Restrict is almost forced to destroy their own restrict with things like you can attribute it with Thunder Dragon, destroy with Ring of Destruction, flip it over with Tsukiyomi, flip it over with Book of Moon, that kind of stuff. So you're really kind of making your opponent go neg. You're getting their spells and traps off the field temporarily, and you're returning whatever monster they soaked up back to your hand. I think it's a very cool concept how Giant Trunade can just return that monster back to your hand, because at that moment it is a spell / trap. So that's one reason why people are also playing Giant Trunade. Not that it doesn't go in well amazingly with these decks, but other decks that are playing against GOAT control side this card in. So like say it's a GOAT control mirror match, siding in Giant Trunade could possibly win you the match almost very easily if you're forcing your opponent to destroy their own Thousand Eyes Restrict and just kind of sitting on that for a while. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. So props to those people that are doing that. I noticed this a while back because people were just playing random decks like Chaos Warrior and GOAT Control and that kind of stuff. And in my deck that I play, which is like a Reasoning Gate deck, I do play Thousand Eyes Restricts, I play Tokens, I play Metamorphosis, all that kind of stuff. And I'd soak up their monster, and then they would just go Trunade on me, and I'd be like, well, I'm just kind of sitting there for a little bit. And in my deck, I don't play things like Thunder Dragon. I don't main Book of Moon, so it just kind of really screws me there for a while. So very cool for the people that are doing that. Very big brain shit right there. I also do want to point out the interaction that Giant Trunade does have with cards like Premature. Premature is such a great card, and if you can activate Premature and then summon things like Crane, Demok, really it's so many monsters in this format, and then you can activate Trunade and get their spells and traps off the field, and then return this Premature Burial back to your hand. That is just some A+ pro playing right there. It's just really awesome. We've seen this for a while with things like Abyss Soldier, where Abyss Soldier was, pitching and returning back to its hand, and then going at it again. I think that's pretty cool. Premature Burial is such a great card. Decks that are playing things like Premature Burial that can abuse with Giant Trunade, that just puts you so far ahead in advantage, depending on especially what you have in your grave at the moment. Does not work the same way with Call the Haunted. I put this card in this discussion just so that we could talk about it real quick. Call the Haunted says something a little bit different. It says, when this card leaves the field, destroy that monster. When that monster is destroyed, destroy this card. So when Call the Haunted is Trunaded, we're going to use that as a verb, past tense. Whenever it's Trunaded, it doesn't work the same way. So just it doesn't work the same way as Premature. Keep that in mind. So Premature is also a really good card just in a lot of different decks in general. So if you're playing premature, you might consider siding Giant Trunade for them go control matchups. So one last thing, Giant Trunade is really good against cards like these. Because Giant Trunade, you worry sometimes about it being a neg one. It can be. And if you're trying to OTK, after the life point reaches 0, it doesn't matter if you neg 10 because they lost. But in other situations where you're playing a slower paced game, you're not playing an OTK or a win quick, quote unquote, deck like these. Giant Trunade can seem like a neg one. So other really good reasons why Giant Trunade is great, because you can go 1-for-1 with cards like this. Scapegoat, Wabaku, Threatening Roar. I mean, there's a lot of different decks, honestly. So just keep that in mind, because Giant Trunade does kind of seem like, well, you're just giving your opponent's cards back to him. Well, if you can go 1-for-1 with that, that's really the name of the game. Go 1-for-1 plus where you can and get your opponent's life points to 0. That's really all it is. So anyway, guys, Giant Trunade, I feel like is going to be here for a little while at least, just due to all the decks that are playing it, the interactions that it has with other different decks and that kind of stuff. We are at this peak right now of aggressiveness in this format. Like I said, we have things like Panda Burn and we have things like Crane Gate, which is arguably in a lot of other scenarios more aggressive sometimes than Chaos Warriors can. So I think everybody looked at Chaos Warriors and said, well, shit, how can we top that? And then they just, been playing a lot of go fast, win fast kind of decks and go. Right now, I think that this Flip Chaos, as of right now, is going to be on the back burner for a little while. I do think that we'll see probably a resurgence. When people are kind of tired of playing so quickly in this format and winning so quickly, I think that we're going to see kind of a resurgence of the Flip Chaos, and I'm interested in seeing on where it goes from there. I know that a couple of years ago, Flip Chaos was such a big thing, and Wang Hu was a very, very popular card at that moment. It was like, I swear to God, like everybody was playing Wang Hu. I'm curious to see where it goes after Flip Chaos becomes a thing again. So anyway, guys, Giant Trunade, get you some copies of it, side it, especially if it's relevant in your deck. But anyway, we will see you guys later.